So my name is Ken Morgan. I'm talking about Ikigai, awareness, and sustainability. 2017, I published a book on Ikigai from a London publisher. And fortunately for me, it has been well received, and it is to be published in 30 countries and in 28 languages, including Arabic. Yeah, great. Now, what is Ikigai? Ikigai, quite simply put, is the reason you get up in the morning to take your dog for a walk or to have a cup of tea, maybe. So Ikigai can be a small thing, but it can be also your life's goal, life's ultimate achievement that you like to make. So Ikigai is something that is very deeply embedded in the Japanese culture. Compared to other cognitive and psychological concepts like mindfulness, flow, and grit, Ikigai is more proactive. It is associated with something you do, no matter how small it is. And it is also a wider spectrum thing. It is something small and something big and everything in between. So Ikigai is very much connected to wellness, creativity, quality of life, and anti-aging. Here are the 5 pillars of Ikigai that I described in the book. Starting small, releasing yourself, harmony and sustainability, the joy of little things, and being in the here and now. It's like the 5 pillars of Islam, right? So I'm going to describe 3 of them to you now. Starting small. This is a picture of Skiawashi Jiro, one arguably world's best sushi restaurant. When President Barack Obama came to visit Tokyo, he went there with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and according to Obama, he had the best sushi in his life. This is great coming from him, right? At the helm is Jiro Ono. He's the master. He is, at the age of 94, the world's oldest Michelin 3-star chef. 94 years old. And if you go to Skiawashi, if you're lucky to have a reservation, which is really difficult, you would see him there behind the counter. Isn't it amazing? This is a very beautiful result of Ikigai. Here's a picture of Jiro Ono as a child. His family was not very rich, so he had to start working in a restaurant even when he was an elementary school student. Because he worked so hard, during the school hours, he sometimes got sleepy, like some of you might be feeling like. And he nodded off. And his school teacher punished him by sending him out of the classroom and made him stand in the corridor. Because Jiro Ono was very dexterous even then, he thought, oh, maybe if I go to the restaurant now, I can do my chores, which I have to do anyway, so that I can have some more sleep during the night. So he went out of the school and went back to the restaurant and do the chores. So you might think that he might have had a great aspiration from the beginning, but that's not the case. Jiro Ono became a sushi chef not because he wanted to be a Michelin 3-star chef, welcoming President of the United States, but simply because it was the cheapest restaurant to open. Sushi restaurants are very cheap if you don't, require luxurious materials. So, he started from this very small thing. You can start very small. You might have very great aspirations, like the end of war or hunger, but you can start small. That's the beauty of Ikigai. Next, the joy of little things. Now you're going to get some spice. Japan is very famous for small wrestling. You might have the wrong conception that it's about 2 fat men bumping into each other. Well, we do have that, but it's something more than that. There are 10 divisions in sumo. It's a very hierarchical society. At the top, we have yokozuna. Now, we are going to witness how 2 great yokozunas, as Shoryu and Takanohana, battle. Here we go. Yeah, pure magic. Look at how dexterous they are. And oh, And here we go. Yeah. So it's not just two fat men bumping into each other, right? It's a masterful sport. So this is as good as you can be in sumo. At the end of the spectrum, we have Hattori Sakura. As I speak, his career record looks really dismal. 2 wins and 130 losses. He is at the very bottom of the hierarchy. So after all these years, he is still there. Look at how Hattori Sakura would fight in a small boot. Here we go. You see Hattori Sakura on the left. Yeah, I have to explain. You might think that Hattori Sakura is trying to lose on purpose. Well, it's not. I mean, actually, Hattori Sakura had a practice with Nishikijo, the guy who is fighting, and Nishikijo was really strong. So Hattori Sakura became really, really afraid. Have you ever been in a small ring? You cannot imagine how Hattori Sakura was feeling, right? So even without being conscious of trying to lose, he just couldn't make himself go at Nishikijo. Yeah, that's not legal in sumo. Yeah, right? This is not proper. By the way, this boot is taking place at 8:30. That's when sumo starts, and it goes on until 6 p.m. So it's a long, long day for a sumo wrestler. So finally they go, and here we go. So you're actually looking at a professional sumo wrestler. In sumo, actually, one is not forced to quit, how weak one may be. It's quite different from baseball or football. Because, so the question is, what makes Hattori Sakura go on, even if he has this dismal record? The joy of little things. In sumo, you have many, many little things to support you. Like you can be a cook. Small wrestlers cook their own meal. There's a special dish called chanko pot, and it's very tasty. And Hattori Sakura would cook chanko pot every morning for the senior wrestlers. And senior wrestlers might say, oh, this is great, thank you for the great meal. And that would keep him going. So there are many little things that can keep a small wrestler going. So it's not a monocultural sport. And finally, harmony and sustainability. This is the most important Shinto shrine in Japan, the Ise Grand Shrine. Maybe you know, but amazingly, the building is rebuilt every 20 years, the exact same structure. And the rebuilding has been going on for the last 1,300 years. Isn't it amazing? In order to do that, people have to plan very, very much ahead. For example, in order to nurture a tree that can be used for a log for this shrine, you have to have a forest reserve and protect it, and plant trees to be used hundreds of years later by future generations. In order to do that, you have to have this concept of sustainability and harmony. So Japanese concept of permanence is quite different from Western, Middle Eastern concept of permanence, which is based on stone and brick. The Japanese concept of permanence is based on recycling. So this is a good example of the principles of Ikigai too. Now, I'm a neuroscientist, and nowadays people talk a lot about mindfulness. In terms of brain activities, it is related to the activities of default mode network. What is it? When the brain goes idle, the default mode network starts making bookkeeping jobs. You experience many things. In order to sort out the memories, you have to have this network working for you. In order to do that, you have to attend to many small details. not just the big ones, but the small ones. So you have to attend to a spectrum of things, which is the gist of mindfulness, actually. So the Japanese concept of Ikigai is very much related to the concept of mindfulness and the brain activity of the default mode network. Now, nowadays people talk a lot about intelligence, right? Spearman's G factor describes the common denominator of many different aspects of our abilities. In terms of brain activities, it corresponds to some neural activities in the prefrontal cortex, like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And interestingly, artificial intelligence is very good at doing rule-based specific tasks, which is, in human terms, like an extension of these people who are very uniquely talented, the so-called autistic savants. But the rest of us, the neurotypical individuals, are not so very good at rule-based application of rules, as you know. We are better at applying common sense judgments, which is very ambiguous. So the development of artificial intelligence is going in a very different direction compared to the human brain. We have consciousness. By the way, the elucidation of consciousness is my life's big goal. But it is quite difficult. But neurotypical development is focused on developing consciousness, which is about mindfulness, and which does not actually apply rule-based algorithms to think about these things. On the other hand, artificial intelligence systems are very good at applying rule-based computations, and we might have singularity, but it's important to realize that this singularity is very different from what human brains are capable of. So, some of you might be really intelligent, and some of you might not so intelligent, but I think you're all intelligent. But anyway, the individual differences between humans are nothing compared to what we will have in the future from recursively self-improving AI. So AI makes our intelligence less relevant in the future. What is relevant? Personality is going to be more important. In cognitive science, it has been shown that personality is nurtured through our social relations. So we interact with people, like in this conference, and we nurture our personality. MIT study shows that social sensitivity, which is embedded very much in social interaction, is the key for collective intelligence and team performance. So rather than the intelligence of individuals, we really need to feel and empathize with each other. That's the key for success in the future. So those of you who have had really excellent academic records, forget it. It is not going to be important in the future. Now, I would like to draw some very concrete and tangible examples from Japanese companies. In Toyota, anyone, and I mean anyone, from junior high school graduates to PhDs can make proposals to improve the so-called Toyota production system. I visited their factory once, and it was really amazing. It's pure equality. There's no strict hierarchical structure. So no matter what kind of educational background you might have, you can contribute equally to the team performance. I think this is the ethos of Ikigai, deeply embedded in the Japanese culture. Nowadays, you might know that the Japanese whiskey have a really high reputation. This is Mr. Koshimizu, and he has been a long time chief blender at Santry. He told me once a very interesting story about how single malt whiskey developed. If you put a single malt whiskey in a cask, you cannot predict what kind of individuality it will develop. So you have to accept that. A single malt might not be drinkable by itself. But surprisingly, if you mix them with other single malts, the result is sometimes really, really rewarding. So, it's a very beautiful metaphor for human society as well, I think. Each of us have our own individuality, right? We cannot help it. That's diversity. So one person might be a kind of a nuisance, right? Like myself, I move too much, I know. This is my hobby. I don't look like a typical global government summit speaker. I know that, I accept that. But this is my individuality. So if I had a million people like me, it would be chaos, right? But if you mix these different individuals in an interesting way, like a good whiskey, you can have a really good team and good society. That's the spirit of Ikigai. And finally, Hoshino Resorts is a very famous and rapidly developing hotel chain in Japan. I'm not sure if they have one hotel in UAE. If they don't, they should. But anyway, Mr. Hoshino, the founder of this company, encourages employees to make their own decisions. Now, this is very important because in terms of brain physiology, you have something called dopamine. And when you take your own action based on your own decision, then if you have a success, dopamine is released, and you have a process called reinforcement learning, in which the synaptic connections between neurons are reinforced. But this can happen only when you make your own decision, not because you are told by your boss to do something. That doesn't work. You have to do your own judgment. And so this is a very important message, I think, for organizations around the world. And this is very much related to the concept of Ikigai. So Ikigai, I have discussed some aspects of Ikigai for wellness and sustainability. The spirit is do it and reinforce it, right? You have to do it yourself. And if you're successful, your brain circuit will be reinforced. And this is very important. You can start small. In the morning, I attended this preliminary session, and there was this guy from America who was teaching us about leadership. He went overtime. That was great. But if you look at him, you would feel that oh, I have to be a big shot like him, and I am so small. How can I be like him? That is the kind of preoccupation you might have in the globalized economy, right? But the spirit of Ikigai is quite different. You can be a nobody. You can be a nobody, but you can start small. Like Jiro Ono was when he was a small child. Nobody knew that he would be a three stars Michelin chef in the future. But that's not the point. You can start small, and you can do it together. This is the most important aspect of post-AI society. So the collaboration between people with different backgrounds, different individuality, different uniqueness is going to be the key in the era of artificial intelligence. So that's my talk, and I'm sure you haven't understood what Ikigai is after my talk. The good news is, if you're interested, after this session, I'm going to have a book signing session with my book. So if you're interested, you might have some engagement, and you might have to hurry off. But if you have time and if you are willing, I can sign your book, and also I can draw some strange illustrations, and and we can probably begin to collaborate in the future. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.